very warm welcome to you this afternoon. A very sunny and extremely pleasant afternoon as well. It only gets better. I'm just going to pause for about 10 seconds so the broadcast then starts. And you've got papers, you've all got the papers in front of you, so you know where we are with that. Okay, I've got a thumbs up. We will start then. Thank you. First item, minutes of the last meeting held on 9th of March. Just basically to ask you, the committee, if we can agree the minutes. Are you all happy with that? Thank you very much indeed. Item 2, apologies for absence. Couple of tweaks here, Sarah.
Okay, right. So we've got Councillor Bethan Eddy has sent her apologies, and Councillor Richard Butler is substituting for this meeting only. And Councillor Darby and Councillor Williamson are going to be running about 45 minutes late.
Much appreciated, Sarah. Okay. They both saw me just before the meeting, about an hour ago, to let me know that they would be late. Declaration of interest. A, do any members or officers present have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? B, do any members or officers present have any private interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? Silence is golden, so I take this no. Okay, thank you. Item 4, update to report the progress on the Council's commitment to British Sign Language Charter. And at this point, a very warm welcome to Robin and Lisa. Nice to see you here this afternoon. I formally introduce the report and move the recommendation to page 8 of the agenda pack. Do you have a seconder?
I will second, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Jill, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm delighted to welcome Robin and Lisa to this meeting for this particular item. Members will be aware that this council became a disability confident leader last autumn and has since looked to review a number of its commitments to improve how we deliver on the commitments that we make in terms of a whole range of pledges given on various disability initiatives. So today, Robin Ash from the British Deaf Association has joined us because he's been working to review the Council's commitments specifically in relation to our long-standing commitment to the British Sign Language Charter. This report seeks to provide information to members on that review of the commitments made and to seek approval for the development of an action plan to consider how we address the identified priorities from the report that Robin has provided to us. The report committee explains that the Council signed the British Sign Language Charter in December 2014. And whilst there have been significant pockets of work ongoing, that hasn't been joined up across the whole council. And clearly there have been developments in the intervening period that better reflect how we will deliver on our commitments made. The review is timely as well because there are potentially new requirements which the council will face as a private member's bill is travelling through Parliament at the moment, which seeks to make British Sign Language a recognised language of England, Scotland and Wales. The Charter sets out 5 key pledges to improve access and the rights of deaf people who use British Sign Language, and these 5 pledges can be found at the top of page 6 of the bundle of papers for committee today. The Charter presents us with an opportunity to address and reduce inequalities which may be experienced by deaf people in Nottinghamshire. Colleagues from a range of services across the council have been involved in the work to assess progress on meeting the commitments made, including colleagues from Adults and Children's Social Care, Communications, the Customer Service Centre, HR, and involving colleagues from the Disabled Employee Support Network and the recognised trade unions. We want to grow our understanding of our deaf residents who use British Sign Language, and we are grateful to the work that Robin has undertaken on our behalf. Councillor Wheeler, as the Members' Equalities Champion, has met with representatives of deaf communities in Nottinghamshire, and that, I understand, is a commitment that you would wish to continue in future to ensure that we do deliver on our commitments that we're making here today.
Absolutely.
The review has enabled the Council to identify priority areas for activity which are being developed into a comprehensive action plan. Today we're seeking member approval to further develop this work and to continue to work with services across the Council to ensure the publicly made commitments are translated into genuine actions which will improve services for and to be accessible for deaf people and their families and carers. I'm just going to pause here a moment and offer Robin the opportunity just to comment briefly on the work that he's undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity. Making me feel very welcome here. I'm here representing the British Deaf Association, and I'd like to thank the Council for allowing me, from signing the Charter back in 2014, I was here when the Charter was signed, and in that time, things have progressed, but looking back is a really good way for the Council to celebrate any achievements and identify any areas for development. And we'd like to say, you know, a real commendation to the staff for their willingness, their openness, their initiatives, and looking for solutions and reflecting on the work that they've done that may not have been inclusive through no fault of their own. But society often gets on with things and forgets deaf people. So they're now on board and supporting us, and they've enabled us to collect so much information. The deaf community itself, thanks to Councillor Wheeler's involvement, have been seen, they've been able to express their views and their passion and show that they want to participate and contribute to society as a whole, which has not been allowed before. They face so many barriers, and the Charter is aimed to break down those barriers, and the audit is looking at finding solutions. We can sit and talk amongst ourselves and go round and round and round in circles, and we're not here for that. We're here to see change. We're here to see deaf people participating in the future. We're here to see them working for the councillor, maybe even becoming councillors themselves. That's our vision of that total participation. And it's a very exciting time for the council. And there's been some really good examples of work that's been done, especially the sign language interpreter contract. So there's a one-stop shop, which is funded by the council along with health and the city council, and it's the best one in the country. We should celebrate what you have here. It's really good. We've got customer services now using sign video technology. So when somebody phones, if a deaf person needs to phone, they've not been able to. Till now, they were having to ask neighbours or friends or family to help them. So their independence has been minimised. People want to work. I mean, a recent discussion was talking about how deaf people access council meetings. At the moment, deaf people are not able to access any council meetings because there's no BSL interpretation. But to reassure you, there are ways forward. We will look at what we can do together, collaboratively working together in readiness for the new sign language bill that's going through Parliament. It's in the House of Lords, and on the 27th of April, I mean, we've had some fantastic support from the UK government. So this means it's a good way for the council to be ready, to prepare and highlight all the good practice and the developments and the initiatives that you've taken to be this far along. And what deaf residents want is to be the same as you. They want to participate in society and participate in life without any barriers. And we really do value all the work that you've done to help us get to this point. And the BDA are very delighted to support Nottinghamshire County Council moving forward with this. Because all we want is the best outcome for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Well,
we really appreciate the work that you've undertaken on our
absolutely.
behalf.
Can I just very briefly just thank you once again, Robin, for an extremely detailed report. And Jonathan and I have been through the report, and we've seen the extraordinary work that you've put into this. We're very grateful to you. And a huge thank you, of course, to Tara sitting next to you as well, for support that she's lent to you. And that's ongoing basis. I'll come back all just a bit later on. But I'll let Jill carry on at this stage. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to pause there and invite members to ask any questions they may have.
Please, Jono.
Chairman, thank you very much. And we've spoken beforehand. I would personally like to say thank you in sign language, but I don't know how to. And I think that's the problem. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and that's the problem is we, as councillors, we are usually the first port of call for anybody. And that we can't communicate to some people in our constituents in our areas is an annoyance to me, and it's frustrating for me that we can't. And what I would like to ask is there any way that councillors in particular can have training in sign language, even if it's just the basics, so we can say where they need to contact and how they need to contact, or even just to say hello and thank you. And going a little bit further, I think we need to go further than just sign language. We need to be looking at all communication with our residents across the piece. And if we have people that speak Arabic in our community, a large Arabic speaking area, we also need training in that area, because we need to speak to the constituents that elect us and the people that want to speak to us. It needs to start here, and it needs to go further. And thank you very much for all the work you've done. And hopefully as a council, we can make it stronger. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jono. We'll take away what you've just said this afternoon, Jono, and we will get back to you.
Can Robin respond to that?
Robin, please, of course. I apologise, Robin.
Thank you for that comment and question. The BDA very much value democracy, and we think it's very important. Our research and work we've shown with deaf people, they don't vote because they don't access the voting information. You know, when you go knocking on people's doors to campaign or canvass for your votes, deaf people are often left in the dark, and we want to change that. We want them to be participating. We want them to be active citizens. So, as you said, yeah, to learn to sign is one thing, yeah. Deaf people learn to read and write English to survive, and British Sign Language is the 4th most used language in the UK. So I do recommend, it's fun, you know, it's visual, it makes you have some good times. But secondly, communicating with residents and finding out their issues. There are technological responses. We were talking earlier before the meeting, for those that have participated in the engagement, there is training available. You need to learn some awareness to understand the community, and our way of life may be slightly different, and there may be a bit of a miscommunication. We don't want that to hinder that process. So it's giving tips and advice on how to work with deaf people, but also to use sign video, which is a video interpreter relay service that you can use via your smartphone. So if you knock on a person's door and it is a deaf sign language user there, you can click on this and you can have a conversation. And what deaf people have reported is that when they're knocked, their doors are knocked by a counsellor, and they say, oh, it doesn't matter, don't worry, and they leave them, they feel this small. They feel not involved, they feel disengaged. So using that is a way to get that access for that deaf person. You can say hello, you say, how are you, my name is whatever, and then use your interpreter on the app to have an in-depth conversation with that resident. And it's a great solution. The council have signed up to sign video, so maybe we'll look at some training for councillors so that deaf people can get a better engagement with you. They're frustrated because they want to communicate with you and vice versa. So bringing both sides together. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, Tara, you're looking at Robin's report. You're pulling out the meat in it. Going forward, the recommendations are already there, and it says so what we'll be doing next. So, John, thank you for that, for what you said this afternoon. We take this, Robin, you know, I believe already, we're taking this very, very seriously. We've had dialogue with you online. That dialogue will continue all the way through. It's not going to stop now. This is never, ever a box ticking exercise. We don't do that. So once more, thank you again for all the hard work, and to all the officers, and you've said it already, all the officers have given you support, customer service team as well, who've been absolutely magnificent in all of this, all the way through. Thank you. Anyone else? Please, Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you for coming. I've just downloaded the app actually, so thank you for that. But one of the things that I wanted to pick up on is what Robert was saying about not being able to engage with the full council meetings because there isn't a BSL interpreter on the screen. I don't know how easy or difficult that would be to get, but I was wondering if we are struggling to, can we look at getting an interpreter in for that? But if we are struggling, is there a way, I don't know, a system that changes the sound into text so that it won't be necessarily live, but we can do it as a relay system? Is that something that we can do? I'm not very good with technology. I'm a complete Luddite, so I'll throw that one out there for the people that are better at it than me. Thank you.
Please.
I mean, that question has been asked by lots of other people, so don't feel that that's anything to be ashamed of. But one of the staff here is from Democratic Services, is looking into how we can make sure that deaf residents have access to these meetings if they choose to. First of all, we were discussing maybe having a tour so they understand how the council chamber works. They may never have seen it before, so they get some understanding of what it is. And we want to use resources effectively, and we want to be realistic. You know, if you don't know how many deaf people are going to turn up, if any, and it's looking at engaging with the deaf community and actually finding out what they want and what type of access they would prefer. Because while technology is there, you can have an interpreter on site. If you see BBC News Live, there is an interpreter in front. So if it can be done for that, it can be done for, there is a way around it to do it for other meetings, doing things live streamed or things like that. So a part of the action plan will be exploring how these type of meetings can be accessible for the deaf community and agree a planned way forward for that.
We're happy on Helen. We will be looking at that, as has already just been said, together with lots of other issues going forward. I don't know, Tara, just spending a great deal of time on that, together with the other officers as well, Jill in particular. Please, Errol.
Yeah, thanks very much for this report. We welcome the report, really, and fully support it. It's pleasing to see how seriously the issue has been taken, and the work is ongoing. It's something that's impressive to see. I just hope that it carries on and we don't stop it halfway through it. Yeah. So thanks very much for this, and you have our support in this.
Thank you. Thanks, Errol. In that case, if there's no other further comment, unless you want to come back with anything, Jill?
No, I think that's all that we need to say today, Chair.
Fine. We'll move in that case to the recommendation. If I get back to my right piece of paper, on page 8, item 1 and item 2 at the bottom of page 8. All those in favour? Thank you very much for your support. Much appreciated. And once more, Robin and Lisa, thank you very much again for coming along this afternoon and talking to the committee as well. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to be here this afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to working with you further to make Nottinghamshire the BSL inclusive council, and we can show nationally what we can achieve, that we can do it. Thank you.
Yeah. And of course, you're very welcome to stay on, but I don't know what your plans are for this afternoon. Whatever they are, we're happy with those plans for you to go forward with those plans. Thank you.
Forgive me for leaving, but have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of your meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Robin. Thank you, Lisa, once more. Bye. You're already ahead of the game, Errol. What can we say? Right. Item 5, in that case. If I could introduce the report and formally move the recommendations of page 15 of the agenda back. Do I have a seconder?
Happy second, Chairman.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jill, it's you again.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to update on the Skills Development and Employment Opportunities Strategy, which was approved by this committee on the 15th of December last year, and to give an update on the activity undertaken to date to deliver on the strategy. I'm pleased to report that the team leader post approved at that meeting has now been filled by Lindsay here. So Lindsay will be taking forward the strategy and working with colleagues from across the whole organisation to draw together the work that's already in train and to build and develop new strands of work as well. We held an introductory meeting on the 16th of March, which Councillor Gordon Wheeler attended, which was one of the most positive meetings I've been to in a very long time. And that brought colleagues from adult social care, children's social care, economic development, a range of services, to understand the activity that people are currently undertaking in terms of supporting people who may not have been in employment for some time, to developing skills for young people, for our care leavers, for anyone who wishes to have an opportunity of a career within the council. And that's critical at the moment because we know that we're currently experiencing significant recruitment challenges in a range of areas, not just the more expected areas, but areas where normally we wouldn't experience any difficulty in attracting candidates. So that meeting is for people to send in their various strategies, their action plans, so that we can have an absolutely accurate baseline of the activity undertaken to date. We're also engaging with external partners, arm's length companies, so Inspire, there was a colleague from Inspire there. Lindsay's got meetings listed with Fire and ARC as well, so that we're ensuring that all our activity is joined up. Because as you will recall from the strategy, the importance was that we get the most out of the investment that we put in our trainee programmes so that people have a realistic opportunity of sustainable employment moving forward at the end of whatever their traineeship might be. That starts even earlier by building relationships with schools regarding work experience, and we're in the process of developing a more comprehensive work experience programme where I think Councillor Jackson, it was your suggestion at the meeting that we maintain contact with people from the moment they access work experience with us so that we can keep the council at the forefront of people's minds when they're choosing their future options for career or indeed further education. So the report also contains brief updates of the various ongoing strands of work. So you will see that we currently have 243 employees undertaking some form of apprenticeship, 69 of those in maintained schools. We're also using transferred levy money to support 80 apprenticeships either in Nottinghamshire or for Nottinghamshire residents, to ensure that we maximise the capacity of levy funding. We are engaged in a range of activities showcasing the work that we're undertaking. So Lindsay has attended a recent D2N2 event where she was giving our experience of levy transfer as an example of good practice. I believe the description was Lindsay was in sparkling form on the day, and that's an ongoing piece of work that we're going to do because we understand that the importance of, as the council works more collaboratively with other councils and employers, it's really important that we join up our strategies so that we are not just benefiting ourselves but ensuring the benefit is felt across the whole geographical area. We've also recently taken part in an LGA webinar where again Lindsay presented on the implementation of apprenticeships with impact showcasing the work that we're doing in adult social care. So a lot of activity in terms of apprenticeships. The report mentions that there's been an increase in uptake of apprenticeships, that they've started to rise again, having seen a dip during the course of the pandemic. So that's good news there. Moving on then to the Graduate Development Programme, and I'm delighted to welcome 5 of our current graduate trainees at different stages in their journeys of traineeship. I'm going to invite them to just say a few words of where they are. So, Abby, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I've been on the graduate development programme for about 6 months now, so I'm just finishing my first placement at the moment. So I was working on our celebrations to Nottinghamshire Day, and now I'm moving into adult social care reform, so quite a change.
Hi, I'm Emma Smith. I joined the Graduate Development Scheme in January last year, so I'm just moving on to my third and final placement. I've worked in adult social care in the service improvement quality and practice team. I then worked on the environment strategy, and I'm now just moving into public health, working on domestic abuse and alcohol-induced harm.
Hi everyone, so I'm Alex Dodd. So like Emma, I joined back in January last year. I spent the first 9 months in children and families working on the service improvement side of things there. And more recently I've just spent the last 6 months in the growth infrastructure and development team. And now I'm just moving into the waste and environment strategy, so taking on a bit of the work that Emma's been involved with. Yeah, and had a great time so far.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark. Like Alex and Emma, I joined in January 2021. My first 9 months were spent in transformation and change, undergoing a review of the contact service within children's. It was very interesting and in depth. And then I've spent the last 6 months in countryside access and managed to work sort of across the group with highways and transport and be involved in all kinds of interesting work and different projects. And now I'm moving into East Midlands Development Company, which will be a nice change and something a bit different. So it's just been great to be involved in so many high-profile pieces of work and just have a great breadth of experience.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn. I'm also started 6 months ago with Abby. So I'm one of the most recent members to the grad scheme. And I'm just coming towards the end of my first placement, which was in children and families in the quality improvement team. And next week, I'm going to start my next placement, which is in public health.
So hopefully members got a flavour of the range of activity that our graduate trainees are involved in and at the different stages. You'll have the opportunity to ask our graduate trainees questions at the end, but if I move on to the end of this section of the report. So importantly, we're just closed our applications for the latest recruitment round, opened on the 15th of March, closed at midnight last night. We've had 127 applications, which is lower than previous years, but I think that's reflective of the whole work situation. Lindsay will be organising the sift of those. We'll not be reducing any of our criteria. It's really important that the calibre of the scheme is maintained because, as you see, our current cohorts are very, very high calibre, and we want to maintain that. So whilst it's a reduction in overall application numbers, I'm hoping that we haven't seen any kind of reduction in the quality, and we'll keep that under review, and we'll continue talking to current chair about the numbers and the people that we think we want to put through. So the next step in the process after shortlisting will be an assessment centre mid to late June, and then with interviews with a start date at the end of September. We haven't got a breakdown of the applications yet between protected characteristics or internal and external, or where they come from in relation to the geography of the county, but that information will become available as we go through the process. It's just very recently closed, so that's why I haven't got that for you today. So just wanted to pause then before going on to ask members if they've got any questions for our graduate trainees.
Well, firstly, thank you to graduates for coming along this afternoon and talking to us. I know I met you recently, Abby, when we did a presentation from Chief Executive's Office with Marge and Jill. So nice to see you again. And I've met you all at some point a few months ago now. Time has flown by, hasn't it? So it's lovely to see you all again. And thank you for sharing some of your experiences with us. I'll now open up the floor if anyone's going to ask you any searching and difficult questions. Don't panic, honestly. No? Gosh, how did you get away with that one? Oh, well done, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. It's not maybe not for the graduate as such, but for us. When the vacancies are advertised or the opportunities are advertised, do the applicants have a choice of a sort of service sector department that they might be interested to follow as their long-term career in the first instance, or is it more of a sort of generic? This is the county council and come and see us type of thing. How does that work?
It's very much the latter. So the graduate trainee programme is very much that you come and you do 3 or 4 different placements over a 2-year period, some of which might be very different from what your degree was in, to give you a broad range of experiences, because for some of our graduate trainees it's completely changed where the direction that they expected their careers to take. We think that 4 placement experience gives people the best grounding and the best insight into how the council operates, so that we hope that will enable them to make local government a long-term career choice.
Do you have anyone want to speak on that? Yeah, please do so.
Yeah, so as Jill's just said, when we come into our first placement, Adrian, who kind of runs the scheme, is really good at matching up some of the skills and any previous experience we might have had with our first placement, so that it's a good mix of something that might be a little bit familiar or where we've used those skills before, but also something that's quite challenging. And obviously we all get to find out what the council does in relation to whichever service we're working in. I came in onto the scheme from a health background, so I didn't come straight out of university, and I was always quite keen to continue to follow that path. But I think something that's so fantastic about the scheme is that we do get the opportunity to try something different, which, you know, going into a lot of other employment opportunities you don't get. You kind of go in and you sometimes hope for the best, that it's something that you enjoy, and it isn't always. So I've had an opportunity through going to work on the environment strategy to actually test my belief, is healthcare, you know, health and sort of social care the way that I want to go or not. And I've learnt some fantastic skills through doing that. But I've also been able to have a conversation with Adrian about kind of my expectations and what I feel like I want to do for my future career. Adrian supported me to get experience that will support that, if that's the route that I still want to go down at the end of the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. That help. Good. Thank you. It is, absolutely. Jonathan.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you everyone for being here today. I think just listening to you speaking there about how you found the scheme so far has answered a lot part of my question. It's really good to hear that what the scheme we offer is working for you join the team, because, you know, I did graduate scheme many years ago now, we're 15, 16 years, well, more than that, but I don't want to go, but it makes him feel older than me, that's fine. You know, I said, but I remember it very rigid, and for give an example, I'd been a store manager and I was asked to go back and learn to be a deputy store manager. I've been a store manager, fine, you want to pay me more to go do that again? Well, you know, want to do that way, but it wasn't tailored. So hearing that we're tailoring that experience and helping push you at the same time, it's really good to hear. So, not to put anyone on the spot at all there, but from what you've done so far, would there be anything that you would change slightly differently? Obviously, we have got a new scheme starting shortly, so your feedback will be really good to tweak it. Don't worry, Lindsay will give me daggers, not you, so don't worry about asking this question there, but just understand it for yourselves to be something you tweak. That's not saying anything's bad, but something you tweak slightly just to give us that feedback for the next scheme.
Go for it.
I'll jump in on that. I think, to be honest with you, my experience so far has been far more than I could ever have imagined. I think the only thing I could potentially suggest is that first placement, have a little bit of a conversation prior to joining the scheme, to have a little bit of input over where you might go. I understand that Adrian has to do a bit of a matching process with what bids have been put in from the various departments, but my only suggestion would be that, and that isn't to say that I haven't enjoyed any of the placements I've had. It's just necessary that you have only got 4 placements, and this is a huge organisation, and every opportunity you get to tailor it to your experience, the better, I would say.
Thank you. Lindsay's been listening to every word you've just said, so I'm sure she'll take them on board. And we did have our no holds barred chat a few months ago, where I asked you to give me your experience, and we took that away as well. That was really helpful. Anything else, Jonathan? Errol?
Yeah, thanks very much. What do we really do to ensure, once the graduates have completed their program here with us, what do we do to sort of encourage them to stay here with us? We don't want to go off to another place, do we? We want them to stay in Nottinghamshire. What do we do to encourage that? And another thing I've asked before about where I know you've told us before where the things are advertised, where the applications are, the application, where they're advertised. And I just need to know again, what are we robustly looking to increase the intake that represents the communities that we serve, a bit more variety really of age, race, and so on? Are we doing that type of work? I know you've answered me before, but I will carry on asking the same question until I can see some changes, because I haven't seen any changes at the moment. I can't see it. There might be somewhere else that I haven't seen, but from what I've seen so far, it's the same old from before. So I'm just asking that again for the next round.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. I think what we try to do in promoting the scheme is use Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. That is the feedback we've had where people currently look for such schemes. But current members of the various cohorts also are the best advocates for the scheme, so they tell their friends. Some of them have attended recent events at the universities to promote our scheme. Now, that might mean you're only promoting to the people who are at the university that you're attending. That's probably a deeper societal issue than our graduate scheme can address. We also share the recruitment information with our self-managed groups to extend within their networks. So I believe we have as extensive a reach, because if we're talking about putting it in hard copy media, that isn't necessarily where people are looking for these opportunities. So we're using social media platforms, we're using our existing cohorts to recommend the scheme to their friends, and we're also using internal mechanisms to promote the scheme to members of their communities. I'm more than willing to take on board any suggestions of where else we might promote the scheme, because it's in all our interest to have the widest reach across Nottinghamshire, notwithstanding there are fixed criteria to be relevant and eligible for the scheme.
And with the help from Sid and others, there's a blog also been set up. That's correct, isn't it? Which I hope you find that useful. Share your experiences with others, and for others to share the experiences with you and the next cohort as well. So we're very grateful what the graduates have already done. I think some of you have already been to road shows as well, haven't you? Well, there you are, you see, they're out there spreading the word for us. Isn't that fantastic? You know, and we take on board what you're listening to. We are listening to what you're saying. It's evolving. We'll wait and see what the outcome is on the present recruitment exercise. And you have a conversation anytime you want with myself, with Jill, with Lindsay, with Jonathan, Marge. We'll have that conversation. Really not an issue at all. Sorry, Helen, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. My error. Sorry.
The other part of the question, the earlier part of your question, was in relation to how do we seek to retain the graduates. So clearly that's the very principle of the strategy that was approved in December about creating employment opportunities and to maintain the investment that we've had. And thus far of the various cohorts, I think we've had 2 people not secure permanent employment, and they have chosen to move away from Nottinghamshire, so it's not because they weren't presented with opportunities. And colleagues have gone into significantly promoted opportunities from the graduate trainee scheme. So certainly I can think of former graduate trainees who are doing great work in public health and in police department, and we're looking to obviously replicate that. At the point where the graduate trainees are coming to end of their 2-year traineeship, part of the work that the team will be doing, Adrian and Lindsay and other colleagues, will be to be talking about what vacancies are around, how people can access employment, like we would for any other colleague who'd been employed, whose employment was coming to an end, because it's critical that we do try our very best to retain the knowledge, the experience and the talent that we've sought to develop for the 2 years previous.
Sorry. I don't know if you can do this or not, but I know in the past with certain trainee programs, you say we will support you, and if you leave after 1 year, or you pay back some sort of money back. I'm not sure if you can do that too, where once the program is finished, you have to find them. If you don't find them an employment, then they go anyway. But if they found an employment within our department, can they leave after about a year, or without any payback, or they can just leave anyway?
They can just leave anyway if that's what they choose to do, and experience and advice is that repayment of training fees is fairly unenforceable. What we want to do is not reach that point. We want to give people the richest of experiences so that they don't want to leave, but people's circumstances change all the time, and sometimes it's unavoidable that people might need to leave a programme. And what we'd want, and we'd say this for any of the applicants, is wherever they get to in the process, however far, we want to give them the most positive experiences of working with this council, so that if not now, at some point in the future when they've developed their career, they will still reflect on Nottinghamshire being a good place to apply for work. And that's what we've tried to maintain. Whether you're unsuccessful at this point, there will be other opportunities. So therefore, it's really important how we treat and interface with all candidates and applicants.
Thank you very much. I know, sorry.
Can I
Please,
just say,
Sheila,
I think
please
we've got a good example in County Hall anyway. I remember our chief executive coming to work here years ago in youth department. You know, so we're training people up to get better, not worse. So it's just that.
Yep. Thank you, Sheila, for that. Yeah. We're among Anthony, won't we, when we see him next? Well, that's what I actually meant. The challenge has been set already. Thank you. What we will be doing, I know we're moving on, we'll come on to this bit later on, after today, moving soon, we hope, towards a cabinet system. But that dialogue of issues we've been discussing this afternoon, apprenticeships, graduates, etc., Jonathan and I will be meeting regularly with Lindsay, so, and on the action plan as well. So that it won't stop now. This will be an ongoing piece of work for however long it takes for us to get there. Is there anything you want to add, Jonathan?
I mean, just to say, you know, looking at how we've advertised graduate scheme this year, the level of comms has been much higher than I've seen previous years, and it's something that I've been 5 years in this committee. And as you said, just because you have a lower amount doesn't necessarily mean the quality is lower. It just means lower amount of people apply, because the market force out there are a lot different than they have been in previous years. I think what's also important to say, ask about breakdown of where we can look going forwards to recruit better. When we have that data, which Lindsay will go through to see where people are applying from, we can then look at from there. Do we have to look at targeting different areas, or if we're getting 80% of applicants from one particular area, does that mean we've got to look at how we communicate that area if we replicate that elsewhere? So that will be looked at. I think also what's really exciting to see is that the quality of people, just for example, Abby, when we were on a meeting the other day, the way you spoke was absolutely superb. I think it was the Nottingham Roadshow, and it put some other people to shame being a lot longer. And like I say, so it was really positive to see that. You see that quality and the difference and the confidence you had, which on people would. So it's a really exciting time, I think, that people are joining the scheme. And I think the fact that people still want to come and work here, we took on extra people this year that we expect to take on. And I think what the point is made clear is, going forwards, Richard will have to cover his ears at this minute about finance, but depending on the quality of people, that that the amount of people we take will be reflected on the shortlist given, and if we feel that those people are right to be on the scheme. If it's more than what's expected, then I say we've got to shake Richard down for some money.
Don't give anything away. Thank you, Jonathan. Is there anything further you want to add?
I just wanted to move on and give an update on the Change 100 internship, which is the opportunity that we have for undergraduates in their final year at university who have a disability. It's a scheme run by Leonard Cheshire, and I'm pleased to say we've had 5 bids for placements over this summer. These are paid internships, and certainly in the past we've at least 2 of our interns who've come forward and taken on permanent employment with the council as a result of their engagement with that programme. I think that's all I want to say in terms of presentation. I've touched on work experience previously, so it would be to consider the recommendations.
Thank you. Well, you have the recommendations on page 15, paragraphs 1 and paragraph 2. Unless anything further, anyone those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's unanimous once more. Thank you very much, and thank you again, our wonderful Integra graduates, for coming on this afternoon and talking to us so openly. It's really appreciated. And thank you, Lindsay, for the work you already started to do and carrying on doing. It's great. You're welcome to stay, please. So, but I'd leave you the choice is yours. Item 6. Doncaster County Council Workforce Availability Sickness Absence Record. I've introduced the report and formally move the recommendation on page 20 of the agenda. Do I have a seconder?
I have a second, Chairman.
Just when you thought you were getting a break, Jill, you're not. You're back.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief. So members will recognise this is a regular report committee reporting on attendance management, sickness absence performance, and support to maintain employee health and well-being. So it provides an update for quarter 4, which would be the end of March, end of year 21-22. We also seek approval for ongoing actions in the Employee Health and Wellbeing Action Plan to add and identify new actions as part of the Workforce Resilience and Recovery workstream. I can report as an update to the last sentence of paragraph 2 that workforce availability today is 88.6%. That figure has stabilised, having dipped due to increased COVID-related absence, and the majority of people unavailable for work is due to annual leave, which is not unusual around a bank the bank holidays and half-term holidays, which fell within this period. We definitely have seen more colleagues with COVID, as would be indicative of the picture across the country. Quarter 4 performance is set out in the table at paragraph 6. Overall sickness has risen from 8.89 days to 9.52, excluding COVID, and up from 10.38 to 11.73 days with COVID included. We are moving to normalise COVID as an absence reason, as society gets back to normal, because at the moment it's separated out. Casework continues. In the last quarter, there have been 6 dismissals for ill health capability and 22 ill health retirements. I think it's important to note that there continues to be 42% of the workforce who've had no absence at all in the last 12 months. I'd also particularly draw attention to paragraph 11 about some specific work that's been begun in the last quarter. And I know John's going to speak a bit more about the work that we're engaging with Nottingham University, specifically around ISO 45003, which looks at developing good practice and focus on psychosocial risk in the workplace. So HR and health and safety colleagues will be working closely together to consider the longer term impact of the pandemic on the mental health of our workforce. In addition, in paragraph 12, I draw attention to the ongoing work with Loughborough University. Some time ago, there was a more detailed presentation about ProWork. This is another project that we've worked with researchers at Loughborough on to try and understand how to return people more quickly to work when they are able and fit to do so. What we've agreed is that the pilot will close, although numbers haven't been high in terms of engagement with that. Both the researcher and their managing professor have been very pleased with the richness of the data they've gathered, and we will be holding a series of workshops drawing managers and trade union colleagues across the organisation to see how we can embed the ProWork toolkit into managers' guidance so that we can have more confident conversations with people in supporting their return to work. So I'll pause there for any questions.
Jono.
Chairman, thank you. In the last meeting, I remember, I can't believe if it was you, I'm guessing it was you, who stated that some employees were a bit concerned about coming back to the workforce because they'd been away for so long. And I've only just had this thought, so I apologise for not bringing it to you before, Chairman, but we're expecting them to come back to work. We've got very limited facilities in this building for people to eat, drink, so they're going to have to go outside, socialise more. The nearest facilities of the pub across the road quite busy. There's other facilities to eat and drink during your dinner break unless you're going to bring your own food in. Is it not time we start having a look at what facilities are in this building, like the canteen, reopening the canteen so people can eat? Well-being, people can start looking after themselves, start eating healthy instead of getting a McDonald's or a KFC or unhealthy food. Is it time that we start looking at reopening this office properly and start having people using it as they would have 2-3 years ago?
Well, firstly, before anyone tries to answer that question, Debbie and Elizabeth, welcome. In case you hadn't realised, we are on paper 6, okay? Right, Jill.
Whilst I can't comment on the opening of catering facilities, I think it is important to note that County Hall is the only one of our main office hubs that has catering facilities or had catering facilities available. So I think we've got to be careful about the consistency of the argument. It's not available at Lawnview, not available at Meadow House, not available at Sherwood Energy Village. But I appreciate that, you know, there are members in this building more regularly as well. So,
thank you. Errol.
No, I'm not going to wind it up. I'm going to say ask your leader to. But anyway, what I was after, Jill, is I know the sickness from COVID is increased over the few months. Is the COVID sickness, is that a part of the normal sickness reporting thing, like the triggers and so on? Is that part of it for staff, or is it separate?
up until this current point in time, COVID-related absence hasn't been included in trigger conversations. What we're considering at the moment is when that becomes normalised, and it does. But what I'd remind members is that any trigger conversation is at the discretion of the manager. The manager knows their member of staff best and will know whether it's appropriate to have the conversation and take them into the procedure, or have the conversation and decide not to take them into the formal procedure.
Helen?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. There was two things that I wanted to pick up on, really. And one, Jill, it's one that we talk about every time. It's on Appendix B. The stress and depression rates are significantly high. And it is, I know we have been doing work on that. And I was just wondering if you've got any updates for us on how was it the buddy system? Did we call it the buddy system? Yeah, how the buddy system was working. Whether your opinion on whether we can actually judge that efficiently at the moment because of the lockdown and people haven't been in the building, can we make an accurate assessment on whether the system's worked or not? I don't know if we can. And the other thing I was going to ask is, it'd be interesting, and I don't know how easy this is for you, Jill, if we can look at the sickness stats from pre-lockdown, compare them to now, but remove the COVID figures out of that, because I think the COVID figures skew it. But also, we can't, by looking at the last quarter, we'll always look at last year, looking at parts of lockdown. So people are working from home, they're less liable to pick up bugs and stuff like that. So I don't think, again, that gives us an accurate representation of the figures. Is it easy? Could you do that go back to pre-lockdown and compare now to then? How easy is that? How difficult is it? Sorry.
I think it's something we've routinely reported every quarter for years. So that information as trend data is available. It just takes somebody to extrapolate it out of previous reports and perhaps do some kind of line diagram. I think it's important to remember that since COVID, we've always reported the figures with and without COVID included in every report that I'm aware that's been written in that period.
If I can just come back on that, I completely get that, Jill. What I didn't mean the specific COVID related illnesses, but what I meant was because people were working from home, you're less susceptible to illness because you're not around other bugs to pick it up. So it'd be interesting to compare the stats when people were officially in work compared to when they were working from. I know they were still working, but the way that they were working differently. So I think, Marge, you're nodding away. You understand what I'm trying to say.
You're trying to measure the residual, the underlying kind of level of the figures. I think that's just taking one number away from another, Jill, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think we reported in the first 2 quarters, if not 3 quarters of the pandemic, overall absence improved significantly. And I think we did attribute that to the fact that people could do some work at home, if not were fully fit. And then I believe we had various debates about presenteeism and were people working when they really shouldn't have been. And then we've got colleagues in the front line who were out in the community working anyway with PPE. So yes, we can take one figure away from another figure. I'm not sure that will give you an accurate picture of what you're trying to get underneath, though, because I think it's multifaceted. Your other question in terms of the budgie scheme, I think broadly that has been superseded by mental health first aiders and the work that they've done in Time to Talk as part of our overall employee wellbeing actions and the employee wellbeing newsletter. They're still operational and have continued to contact people where there's been a need. But I think people have felt far more open to those Time to Talk sessions with the mental health first aiders, and as a consequence, we've got more mental health first aiders now than we did.
Are you happy with that? Yeah, we see where you're coming from. Marge already alluded to that as well. Yeah, okay, thank you. Richard.
Could I pick up on that? Also looking at Table B, and I apologise because I'm not normally on this committee, so you may have discussed it before. But when you see the table saying stress and depression, obviously the figures do look high. But could part of that be the fact that nowadays, compared to a few, not so many years ago, people who are struggling with stress, depression, mental health feel more comfortable, for want of a better word, that's probably not the right word, but feel more confident perhaps in saying that that's what is wrong. Whereas perhaps a few years ago, they were suffering from stress, depression and so on, but didn't dare admit it and would say that they had got a cold or a sore throat or whatever. So is there any sort of background in that shows that perhaps although these figures do appear high when you read them, it doesn't necessarily mean they've suddenly shot up, but there's been a little bit of a pattern and a change in the way people have been talking about their lives and experience. Hope that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah, thanks.
I think that's a very valid point, and I think we've done a lot of work to try and encourage people to accurately disclose the reason and nature of their absence. I think the other thing that I would say is this as a category doesn't distinguish between universal stress and workplace stress. And I think sometimes people get a bit concerned that this is all attributable to work. People's lives can be stressful in many, many ways. And because of our categories, and we've explored previously about why we don't increase the number of categories because of the cost associated with that, it can be a bit of a catch-all category as well for things like anxiety and other mental health illnesses.
Thank you, Richard. If there's nothing, oh, sorry, Jonathan.
Thank you. I think it's just worth saying, I've been on the committee for 5 years. In terms of the breakdown, in terms of the categories, they've been broadly the same during that whole time. And I think the numbers fluctuate in terms of percentages off, but we have to recognise that there are some people, some of our departments' jobs are very stressful jobs, and so you can't compare like for like with some other departments. But when we've always seen the breakdown of figures compared to other councils, they are broadly the same in terms of the breakdown by the reason to be off ill. The main takeaway coronavirus, because it's very difficult to break down because of isolation and childcare arrangements around coronavirus and having to be off. I think the crux of it comes still down to the conversation between managers and their staff about reasons for absence and ways going forward. Some we talk about for years, and we're seeing signs it's getting a lot more, I wouldn't say better, but a lot more ingrained in people in terms of the return to work process and the reasons to go onto the portal. And I think that needs to be the focus going forward, as one-to-one individual conversations, and to understand what if there are underlying reasons, but also what we can do as an employer to adapt things going forward to perhaps make it easier for people, or to change ways of working if need be to make that easier. And I think also a point raised around facilities and what have you. I think we should always be encouraging people, where nearby facilities are, which I know we do, especially people joining. Perhaps something we have to look at with induction process is where we said signpost people, say listen to colleagues and say, okay, McDonald's is the only one close by, don't go anywhere else. Perhaps we look at that with new people joining to make sure that they know where nearby facilities are for wherever they are in our organisation, whichever location they are. But also we do have to bear in mind there is also personal responsibility around health eating, etc. So we've got to be very careful that we don't stray too much into that, but give people the opportunity and the information they need to make their own decision. I think, over these years, and I know it's the last committee meeting now, looking at it show that we are, I still do think we're making progress from where we were 5 years ago when I first joined the committee, and I'm sure from before that, with the way to try to bring down these numbers of absence. And I think you just need to, like I say, keep that focus going on the individual one-to-one basis with people, with our members of the team, and to also recognise where we are in society. We mentioned about mental health issues. If you look at the numbers with people going off for absence for stress, depression, that has shot up. It's kind of double figures in the last 10 years, because, like I say, I think there's more of a social acceptance of that, and also the change in society. So we have to bear that in mind. I'm not saying we accept it, but we bear that in mind, and don't perhaps beat ourselves up too much in terms of looking at those figures, but also just speak to our team and find out what more we can do to help them go forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is that it? Okay, that's it. If we can, in that case, move to the vote. We've already had the recommendation. I mentioned that earlier on. All those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Health and Safety Review Action Plan, item 7. I'll just formally introduce the report and formally move the recommendations of page 39 agenda pack. And second.
Yeah, happy second, Chairman.
John, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. So the purpose of the report is to inform you of the key activities over the last year, health and safety activities over the last year. And as previous similar reports, this forms part of our formal management review for 45,001. We can continue to embed 45,001, which we gained early last year, and its management system. Over this last year, July and January this year, we've had 2 further continuing assessment visits. And I'm pleased to report no major non-conformities have been raised, and we've managed to close out the majority of the minor non-conformities that were the latent issues from the original assessment and award of certification. We've equally managed to at an early stage launch a manager's self-audit, which supports the 45,001 system, where we would traditionally audit face-to-face. We now have a self-audit tool and the benefits of that actually is an engagement with managers, and it starts a dialogue on health and safety, which probably wouldn't naturally occur, and we're using it to risk profile our areas then for further actual audits. Jill neatly summed up the joint work on 45,003. Just to add, and I know Councillor Smith, you've raised these issues around psychosocial risk and obviously workplace buddy schemes and stress management. That's the one of the sole drivers behind 45,003. And we heard on a day we successfully ran here on the 25th of March from the HSE that this is one of the foremost and emerging risks, and this won't be a short-term risk. They're predicting 5 to 10 years. This will be a latent issue within the workplace. So our next stages on this are to work together to develop an action plan, to carry out a gap analysis, and then map out what we have, what works well, what we can measure, which is important, what works well, and then obviously from the gap analysis what we don't have and put it in place. The action plan for 22-23 is attached as Appendix A. I won't run through the full detail of the action plan, but happy to take any questions on that. But that does reflect now new items, including 45,003, which we will develop a separate action plan for and hope to table at a future, I can't say committee meetings, but table in the future. Our next audit continuing assessment is in July. This will be the strategic review, 2 days audit by BSI. This way they look over the last 3 years and award then the certificate 45,001 for the next 3 years, should we be successful, and we don't see any barriers to that not being successful. Over the last year, some of the work of the safety team, it is itemised within the report. Some of the highlights we've carried out and worked with corporate property colleagues and FM colleagues to prepare the buildings for reoccupation. I know we've had swings of reoccupation and not being occupied and then back to reoccupation. And alongside that, we've continued to look and embrace, obviously, the government guidance on infection control, on ventilation, and some of the more physical measures we needed to put in place to prepare the buildings for a return. We carried out, as I say, 73-point checks, and these also focused on staff behaviours and concerns, accepting that the only ones we could talk to were the ones within the buildings. But generally, the ones we did speak to had confidence that the measures we'd put in place were acceptable. For fire and evacuation, I reported to this committee on the 24th of January that moves were in place to improve fire safety. That has now been launched. You know from within the building some of the changes, the physical changes with the red vests and the new signage. That is in the stage of being rolled out. Training is being amended as we speak and will shortly be available online. And sitting alongside that, there's some ongoing work around personal evacuation plans, which is slightly more difficult to address, but we'll take a similar approach to what we did with the fire evacuation, fire wardens and fire marshals to achieve a workable solution. In terms of performance, we've had no enforcement action over the last year. We've had no corporate complaints regarding health and safety. Despite lockdowns, we continue to carry out some face-to-face audits where we carried out 82 school audits, 30 audits on Inspire sites and 3 corporate cross-cutting audits, and RIDDOR incidents have fallen by in the region of 28%. I'll pause at that stage for any questions.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's an overall point around health and safety more than about the actual report. I think it's it's a very detailed report in terms of the action plan you're going to. I think with health and safety, it's always been one of those areas where people just assume everything gets done behind the scenes, and you're always in the background until something goes wrong, and suddenly you're at the forefront. And every report going through, we find you've been there, done that, seen T-shirt. I think as is the last meeting, just want to place on record thanks to you and the team, because we've seen the accreditation we've achieved throughout the last few years and different standards. There's a lot of hard work behind that. The fact that we don't have we've not had major issues in terms of what you reported there, and major things go wrong shows about that work that's done behind the scenes. So thank you. And actually, a wider point around our training around which is about apprenticeships and graduates. You could do a lot worse than spend a couple of weeks with the health and safety team, because actually health and safety is something that goes through every department, and actually learning what goes on behind the scenes there and all the process procedures. I can't understate it enough, because before I started, I didn't appreciate that before I started my career, and actually being someone else responsible for doing various risk assessment, holding health safety meetings, everything else. There's a lot of work that goes into that, so it'd be something to really bear in mind. So, based on record, John, thanks to you for everything you've done there. And like I say, it's always one that sometimes just goes under the radar, or perhaps doesn't get the kudos it deserves. So please pass that on to your team as well.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. Helen.
Just a really quick one that might sound a bit random, so I do apologise, but what's a face fit test?
Right, I'll be brief. In order to ensure that the protective equipment, a mask, a certain type of mask, fits sufficiently to your face and you're not breathing in any pollutants or hazards, you assure it fits by going through a procedure, a test.
That's fine, I just didn't know what it was. Sorry.
Thank you. I attended the session on the 25th of March, John. Part of the session, at least, anyway. What I will say to you, John was excellent at the way he spoke at that presentation, and to remember to an audience who are very well informed anyway, and they learned from what you said. And I know when we had a quick break after lunch, they wanted to, I think it's Leicester wanted to work closely with us on our action plan going forward, which is just great news, really. Jonathan loves health and safety inspections in the cinema. He loves them. He can't have enough of them. So could you organise a few more for him, John, please? Thank you. Richard.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chairman. Just with the prevalence of hybrid working and thinking about fire wardens when we have a fire drill, or first aiders in teams. What can we do to sort of try and manage that there'll still be a fire warden or somebody with some first aid training in teams that are actually in the building? And I guess secondly, there's every chance, if you're doing 2 days at home and 3 days in the office or vice versa, you won't be here when the fire alarms are tested and may not have been taking part in fire drills. And it's not rocket science, the bell goes off and you leave the building, but there is more to it than that. So is there some sort of register you're going to be able to keep to see who's actually being trained?
Two parts, I think, to that answer. Certainly, fire wardens. So the whole basis of the new fire evacuation system is predicated on everybody being a fire warden. So prior to COVID, we had named fire wardens for various zones. That clearly won't work because we've got to get the right people with the right training in the right place at the right time, as you mentioned. So the system we've adopted is now everybody will be trained to a basic standard to be a fire warden. There's shortly an online package to be rolled out, which will support the vests, as you see, so anybody can pick up the vest. On the back of the vest there is a new zone map. You follow the zone map, clear the area. The first person to adopt the vest, take the vest, is the fire warden. So, excuse me, so that's the first part to it. First aiders, slightly more difficult because no matter how you look at the equation, you still need a first aider to be trained. We've broken this down into minor injuries, so as you would at home, if you cut a finger, more dressing stations, more plasters available in offices, more dressing dots on trolleys. For the more middle range injuries where you may need a workplace first aider, we're still promoting the use of the red lanyards for anybody who has received any degree of first aid training, be that inside or outside work if they come forwards, provided they're valid. Qualification would accept that. Promoting the courses, the availability of the AEDs in the receptions, we've made sure they're now accessible, not behind the glass but in front of the glass, and making that more obvious, together with first aid grab bags we've put into other buildings. And then we've made it clearer when you need to phone the emergency services, such things as what 3 words for locations based on the ambulance services advice. It's quite a large site, this, or some of our sites, they're on long roads, and if you just name the road and not necessarily the building, time can be lost. So we've put together a system which we actually send a copy to the HSE, and they were quite pleased with what we'd done. The third part really to the question is how do we embed this, and once we roll this out will be an enhanced series of fire evacuation practices. So the new corporate landlord model, facilities management will roll out once the training's gone live, more frequent than 6 monthly fire drills, so that we're actually getting a greater chance to capture the people when they are in the buildings, and then we'll take stock and see how efficiently this works. So that's a very quick walkthrough.
Thank you, John. Richard, are you happy with that? Or do you want to come back with anything? Okay, thank you, John. Is there any further you want to add, John, to your report? Okay, no, don't ask. Don't give you the opportunity. Thank you, John. In that case, we don't have any further questions. It's already been moved and seconded. So if all those in favour, please. Thank you very much. And item 8, warm welcome to Adrian. Introduce the report which you have in front of you. On page 48 of the agenda, you've got the recommendation there. Have a seconder?
I'll be second, Chairman.
And I'll ask Marge, please, to present the report.
Right, okay.
It says here.
Well, all right. Okay. Well, self-explanatory would be my summary. Obviously, Adrian's here if you've got any questions or anything you want to ask. It's a request, a recommendation to approve the arrangements for the Deputy Chief Executive to attend a training programme overseas at his own expense, but in work time, and that's why we're bringing the report.
Errol, please.
Yes, thanks. Yeah, only question I was going to ask is that I know you're going to do your expense is going to be covering the cost, but why not take leave? Is there something there? Why do you have to get it to work time? Can't you not take leave?
Well, Jonathan, you want to come in this one?
Yeah,
It's
not fair to Adrian to answer this question. I think
not.
well, the whole point is, if you read through the report in terms of what Adrian's going to be doing, it's going to be a large benefit to Nottinghamshire. And so why should someone who is going to learn something that's going to help their development and for the county take it out their own time to go? We wouldn't expect any other employee to take leave to do a training session. So whether it's in Boston or whether it's down the road in the city, I think you've got to be very careful of that. And the fact that Adrian has come forward and actually virtually insisted and wants to do a certain expense, which I don't want to sit in there, I think is credit to the fact that he understands that there is a large cost in terms of going abroad. There's not asking taxpayer anyone else to fund that. It's just asking that not take out his own leave, so take out leave that he was spending with his family or in his own time, because he's obviously going to be doing this for not only his benefit but the benefit of Nottinghamshire and of this authority.
Yeah, I wanted that explanation, not just for me but for the public. I think it's good that you said that, because I needed that to be out.
Okay,
there.
that's fine. We give you the assurance. Yeah, please.
Just a quick question, Joe, and it may be naivety, but is the only reason this is here is because it's going abroad for a week? Because if it was in the UK for a week, would we still need to be discussing this? Just out of pure curiosity.
It's going abroad and in work's time is the issues. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a requirement. It is here. Yeah, Adrian's. I had a conversation with Adrian before the paper was even drafted. Adrian explained to me what he wanted to do. Shall we say, I thought he was being extremely generous in terms of paying for everything himself, apart from asking us for time off in lieu, in effect, basically to go to work for the program, which, as Jonathan has very, very clearly explained, will benefit this organisation. I was extremely comfortable with it and very pleased, in fact, to bring this report before you this afternoon.
Well, to be fair to you, if I can come back, that was mainly my point, because it says that over the last 8 months he's done other training as part of this already. So I didn't understand the reason why it was coming, and I'm happy to support it. As Jonathan says, it is going to benefit the authority, and I just wondered if it was because it was that abroad bit, because it is a training course. It's going to benefit us, so I don't see the issue, if I'm honest.
It's largely the broad bit, as you've said, and the Marge answer that. It's a very sensitive issue in the past because, as you know, councils have taken some bad publicity because of events which have taken place. I'm not talking about any particular council, I'm talking very generally here, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. So this paper is brought before you, it's open, it's honest. Adrian has, as I said, and I'll repeat, and the paper says this, is only actually claiming time off in effect. Jonathan's, again, very eloquently explained why we must support this. In my view, it should happen. And I think, Errol, you're happy with the explanation that you've been given. Yeah, please.
I'm happy with Councillor Wheeler's exclamation about it all. It's really good, and it demonstrates that when Adrian comes back from America, he'll be able to give this council lots of things. So therefore, why is he paying? Why aren't we helping, supporting that instead of allowing him to pay for it? You know, if we're going to benefit so greatly from it, why are we letting him, saying to him, pay your own way? I mean, that's not. I don't think that's good enough. I think we should be helping.
I had the discussion with Adrian. Adrian was absolutely adamant he was going to pay all his expenses himself. Correct? If you're happy to talk to Adrian, don't embarrass you in any shape or form.
No, members, and before speaking, I've got a very clear and obvious declaration of interest to make about this report. But in that context, and I'm grateful for the messages of support, and grateful too that the County Council has given me the support to be part of the programme over the last 7 or 8 months, as you say, Councillor Smith. But I think when it comes to overseas travel, it's an opportunity that I didn't want to turn down. It's an opportunity to go to Harvard and MIT, but that's not something I feel it's reasonable to ask the taxpayer of Nottinghamshire to fund. So whilst I absolutely expect Nottinghamshire County Council, and therefore hopefully residents and businesses in the county will benefit, so too will I. But I don't think it's reasonable to ask the taxpayer to pay for that element. But I would be grateful, of course, for your support to do that during work time. And I would just like to stress as well, I think, to my knowledge, this is the first time that Nottinghamshire has been invited to take part in what is a national programme of development, and only alumni can nominate other people to attend. So perhaps this might be the first of many opportunities for Nottinghamshire to benefit and access this network and these opportunities for learning and development. But with that, I'll thank you for your support, but happy to answer any other questions if need be.
Thank you, Adrian. Richard.
Well, just to say, really, I think Helen said that Adrian's been on some of these courses already. Actually, when we introduced the item, we said that he'd be absent from work. He won't be, because we didn't notice he wasn't here. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, Adrian. What I mean is that the work carried on, and Adrian will not be absent from work while he's in Boston. He will be answering emails and answering telephone calls. And knowing him, he probably won't even change his watch, so he'll probably still be on UK time and up at 2 in the morning when he's over there to make sure he's available to us. So happy to support it, Chairman.
That's very nice to hear, Richard. Thank you.
But Chairman, I know you didn't answer the bit around why. You said he volunteered to pay for all the other things, but did we say we'll cover anything at all, or you just want to leave that alone, want to go in there? Because I think if he's going to be contributing so much to this authority, I think we should make a little.
That's not before us today. We've had a discussion.
Okay, well,
he's absolutely adamant that he's doing what he's doing, and all we're doing is, as Richard said, we're not actually giving him any time off because he's been working for us anyway, and the benefit we'll get will be enormous. But very kind of you. Well, we want to have a whip round later, will we? Jono.
Chairman, I'm going to be very quick. He is working on behalf of this council. He's going away on a training course for this council. In the military, we used to do the exact same. He's still representing this authority. He's still working on behalf of this authority. We should fully support it. I don't think anything else needs to be said on this.
I think, judging by the conversation, we are going to fully support it. I do hope we are anyway. Right, okay. We won't embarrass Adrian any further in that case. We will move. So we will now move to the vote. All those in favour? Well, I'm very pleased to hear it. Adrian, thank you for coming on this afternoon. Much appreciated. That's Gareth. Thank you. Just very, very briefly before we finish, this is, as I'm sure you're aware, this is the last personnel committee meeting as we move to a cabinet system. Well, for start, thank you very much, each and every one of you, certainly for the last 12 months, and I've been chairman of this committee, for your constant support. It's been really very much appreciated. But simply for information, Councillor Jonathan Wheeler has been a member of personnel since 2017 and vice chair since May 2021. Councillor Sheila Place, been a member since 2013. You get a long-standing gold award for this one, Sheila. And she was chairman of the committee from 2013-2017. Councillor Errol Henry, Councillor Helen Smith, members since 2017. Members joined committee following 2021 elections are Councillor Bailey, Councillor Eddie, Richard Jackson, John O'Lee, and Elizabeth Williamson. Councillor Darby is, of course, our newest member of the committee. Sadly, you won't be in the committee for very long, which is a real shame. We're just getting warmed up. Well, I hope you've enjoyed 1.5 meetings that you've been on this committee. I must also welcome, which you should have done, Laura Webb, and to our workforce, who's joined us from Rushden Borough Council. Warm welcome, Laura. I had the pleasure of working with Laura for a number of years at Rushden. She's been a wonderful asset, I'm absolutely certain, to Nottinghamshire County Council. And Sarah, of course, who's done a fantastic job looking after all of us for goodness knows how long. And well, without Sarah, I don't know what we do. And of course, thank you once more to all of you. Thanks to the graduates. I'm sure we'll have a lot more contact with each and every one of you going forward. But once more, my huge thanks to all of you. I'm not going to thank her. Oh, no. It's just life to remember. Marge, of course. It goes out. She's gone red now. Thanks to you. Thank you, Marge. Who else have I forgotten? This is the problem. You start thanking people, you invariably lift someone out, and it'll come back to haunt you later. Once more, huge thank you to everyone. And that's the end of the meeting and the live stream. Thank you. Sorry, Marge.